Good morning. All right, so let's finish up Exodus chapter 13 this morning. In verse 11, it says, "And it shall be when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall set apart to the Lord all that opens the womb, that is, every firstborn uh, that comes from an animal which you have, and the males shall be the Lord's. But every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, and you shall not redeem it. Then you shall break its neck, and all the firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. So it shall be when your son asks you in the time to come, saying, What is this? You shall say to him, By strength of hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go, that the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beasts. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all males that open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It shall be as a sign on your hand and as a frontlet between your eyes, for by strength of hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt." And so, um, what we find is this idea of the law of the firstborn is it's related to the Passover feast, and it just became something that they did, which is we'll get into the later. He'll specify more laws and more rules. He's kind of just laying down the initial stuff here, and then later in Leviticus, he goes and kind of explains more specifics and details because people have questions. But in short, it's just the idea that the firstborn animal would be a sacrifice. So if you have an animal that's reproducing, to build your flock or whatnot, that the first male ever born would be an offering. And it's just as a response of what God did, that he spared their firstborn in Egypt, and he took the firstborn of the Egyptians. And why? Well, again, it says in verse 15, when Pharaoh was stubborn. Pharaoh was the stubborn one. And God pins it on Pharaoh, as Pharaoh made his own choices to be stubborn and harden his own heart against the Lord and against Moses and all of them. So this is one more thing that they're doing now as a sign. And I think once again, kind of carrying on from yesterday a little, the idea of our kids are watching. And this is now watching sacrifice. Before it was watching ceremony, that we were going through the motions, of the Passover feast and of doing ceremony, of going to church. Now it's watching sacrifice. And might I say again that you ought to have that reputation with your children, that they would see you modeling sacrifice and service. When kids watch you give, well, then they learn that giving has value. When they watch you serve, they learn that serving has value. And if they know their parents don't do these things, well, then those things aren't going to be important to them. And that's kind of the idea. I remember as a kid watching my dad put a check or whatever in the offering plate every Sunday, or however often we did. I remember watching. I don't even know how much was on the check, but I know he did it. I know he did it regularly, and it was a normal thing to see that. I know that we were the last ones to leave, sometimes because it was stacking chairs, and my dad. So I watched as my family served, and so I was brought up seeing this, recognizing that this is what you do. As we model for our kids what we do. Now, here's something for you to understand as well, because all is not lost when you didn't do it at the right time. Because if you get a late start and then the kids get off track and then you come back and start late, but you start, you see, now your kids have a new model, that even one who was off track and not doing it right can change and begin to do it right. And so that's another important thing. It's not like, well, they didn't see me doing it from age 2 onward and therefore it's all a loss. No, we don't only model the good behaviors to our children, we model repentance, we model forgiveness, we model restitution and making right the wrongs. And so, again, if yesterday was modeling worship and modeling ceremony through the Passover feast, here with the sacrifice of the firstborn animals, the law of the firstborn, we're modeling service, we're modeling giving. More things we want to model for our kids that they understand, like, this is what Christians do. And so you can never be too late to start. Even if your kids are out of the house, I mean, this is just worth noting. You can have kids long gone, but they watched as dad changed, mom changed, something happened and they changed, and now they don't act, but they watch. And they can tell if this is some kind of like self-righteous, well, now mom thinks she's better, or if it's no, dad is different now. Why is dad different? Well, watch what dad is doing. And so, again, both of these things, the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Law of the Firstborn, it continues to be, this is a sign when your children come and ask you. All right, now verse 17, we're going to finish this chapter today. It came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near, for God said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up in orderly ranks out of the land of Egypt. So Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under a solemn oath, saying, God will surely visit you and carry you, and you shall carry my bones up from here with you. So they took their journey from Succoth and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. And he did not take away the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night from before the people. Oh man, there's a whole other thing here to talk about. I might save some of the cool type and the lessons we can learn about the pillar of cloud and fire. I'm going to save that for another day. What would I give for a map? Maps? Bible Atlas? Got lots of stuff behind me here. Hey, look at that. I don't know where to look here, but I'll tell you what, it'd be cool if somewhere in this big Bible Atlas book I had pictures for you. But what you're going to understand is he doesn't take them. Oh, right there. Okay. This is going to be all backwards for you guys. That's backwards, but I'm sure you can understand it. But you got Egypt here. And what he's saying is he's not going to take them straight up into Israel. So again, this is a backwards map for you guys. But instead, he's going to take them by the way of the wilderness out to the Red Sea. Red Sea going right through here. And so, and you'll see again, like my map even says Red Sea right there. And so as he's fleeing, instead of going up this way, Moses takes them and they start to retreat down here, down to the point of what we call the Sinai Peninsula. Now, part of the reason this is called the Sinai Peninsula, and even this says, this is kind of cool. I think this is my mom's. Or actually, this is either my mom's or my godmother's. But what you'll find is that today it's called the Sinai Peninsula, and it's supposed to be the wilderness of Sinai, but it's not. This is where they first flee to. They will then cross over the Gulf of Aqaba. That's the Red Sea they're going to cross. And that'll head them into Saudi Arabia, where you will find Mount Sinai. And today, if you haven't done it before, and I'll close with this, you can hop on Google Maps and you can look up Mount Sinai, the real one, Jebel al-Az in the Arabic, which is called today. You can look up the split rock of Horeb, where they split the rock and it opens up. You can look up the golden calf altar. Google Maps has all this stuff now because the locations are all pretty well defined at this point. And so the rock that Moses hit and it splits open, hop on Google, Google Map that. They've got pictures of it from tourists. It is in Saudi Arabia, so it's not a place that Americans just get to freely go. But you can check it out. And so right now, what I was saying is they didn't go straight up into Egypt or into Israel because they'd have to fight the Canaanites right off the bat. So the goal was to go the long way around and avoid the conflict right at the initial start of this voyage. And so they go down to the peninsula. And you're going to find, though, if you follow along that peninsula on Google Maps, there's a nice trail that goes down the west side of the Sinai Peninsula. But then when you get to the bottom, there's a huge area where like a couple million people, like what we've got in our story, could gather. But then you can't really continue around. It's too rocky and it's too narrow. And so you're going to find tomorrow that the people are going to be trapped at the tip of the Sinai Peninsula with Pharaoh's army closing in on them from behind. So what'll God do? I bet you guys don't have I'm joking. Yeah, we all should know what's going to happen next, but kind of a cool story leading up to tomorrow. So yesterday I had one person chime in that earlier was better. Speak now or forever hold your peace. The vote is 1-0. Starting the morning bread earlier in the morning. Hopefully to get some of the people who have work getting it done before and whatnot. We've talked about maybe 6:45, maybe just 7. I think some people start work at 7 actually. So it's just food for thought. You can feel free to chime in though, because then I have people to help contribute. So think about it, and I will catch you guys tomorrow morning. Maybe at 7:30, maybe earlier. We'll find out. I'll make an announcement if we're going to do it early tomorrow. Giving you time to comment. This coffee will only last so long.